on the first day, God said, let there be light. But it wasn't until the fourth day that the sun, the moon, and the stars were created. I don't think they had lamps back then. I don't think they had screens and monitors. So the question that a lot of people ask is, what was this light that was created on the first day if it wasn't the natural light of the sun and the moon and the stars? In order to answer that question, we're going to weave our way a little bit back into the idea that Hanukkah itself is a triumph. It's the little holiday that could. Because going back to its origins, let's think about this. Hanukkah doesn't appear in the Bible. The story of Hanukkah with the Maccabees and the miracle of oil and the Hasmonean dynasty that was fighting against the Seleucids, sometimes called the Greeks, none of this is contained in the Bible. The story of the Maccabees is in the books of the Maccabees that are preserved in the Apocrypha, not found in our Hebrew texts. They were written in Greek. And the story of the miracle of oil is found in the Talmud. It's not a biblical holiday. So, by the way, along the road, if anyone ever says it's not okay to create new Jewish holidays, well, Hanukkah is a pretty good example of one that materialized. And not only that, the era from which it arises, approximately 2,200 years ago, the Hasmonean dynasty had all kinds of holidays. And the only one that we have left is Hanukkah. Not only are we allowed, it seems, to create new holidays, we can also say goodbye to holidays too, if we feel like it. And this is something that the rabbis were doing in the Talmud. So every holiday that we consider a holiday in Judaism, pretty much, I mean, the old ones, not like a new one, such as Yom Ha'atzmaut or something like that, but the old holidays, they generally have their own book in the Talmud. The Talmud, just to be clear, in case, is a compilation of about 37 books that was finished 1,500, 1,400 years ago or so, and is the hundreds of years of discussions between rabbis. And it's a big book. It takes 7 years to read if you read a page on both sides every day. So this, I think, is the biggest Jewish book that I own. This is Masechet Shabbat. This is the book about Shabbat. Yeah, there's commentaries in the back. It's not quite that big in the original, but it's a very big book. That's the book for Shabbat. And there's a book for Yom Kippur, and there's a book for Rosh Hashanah and for Purim. But there's no book for Hanukkah. The holiday of Hanukkah gets 2 pages-ish, maybe a page on both sides, in the book on Shabbat. It's a tangent. It's a mention. It's a footnote, almost. And that is likely because the rabbis weren't so fond of this particular tradition. I don't think the Hasmonean dynasty was the most popular dynasty ever to have governed the Jewish people. But regardless of the exact reasons, Hanukkah was barely a mention in the sources where it first came to be. And the traditions we have around Hanukkah today, lighting 1 candle the first night and 2 candles the second night, and on and on and on. In the Talmud, in the original mention of that ritual, it said that you should only do that if you're a zealot. It's like, that's like going above and beyond. If you're going to be like a normal Hanukkah practitioner, according to the original source, you light 1 candle on night 1, and you light 1 candle on night 2. It's literally lighting a single candle for 8 nights. It was like they were trying to brush this whole thing aside. And it seems that there's something special about this holiday, that not only did it last, but it exploded. It became this almost defining holiday that if you were going to ask in many eras of Judaism, what is the symbol of the Jewish people? More than a Jewish star, the Magen David, you'd probably get a symbol of a menorah. That was probably the most dominant symbol in a lot of times associated with the Jewish people. So Hanukkah is the little holiday that could. It is really like, don't let the light go out. It expanded over time. It gained prominence. And part of it is because when it's dark out, it's nice to have some time with light. And that is a literal statement. It's also a metaphorical statement. What do we really want in dark times? Is we want to connect with something luminous, something that can guide us or give us hope. And that wasn't lost on any of the generations of that preceded us. And also, sociologically, anyone who's had kids in, let's say, North America, knows that around the beginning of December, at least, your Jewish kids start to ask, well, my friend was going to get this amazing gift from this red-coated wizard. Where's my gift? And if the answer is like, get over it, kid, that's not for us, it's not the best answer for most kids. So there's something about those factors as well. But you put it all together, and Hanukkah itself is kind of a miracle. That the light, the holiday of lights, the festival of lights, it kept going. And it grew brighter over time. Kabbalah, in its essence, it's Jewish mysticism. And what is mysticism? By and large, it's another word for spirituality. There is a mystique in Kabbalah. And honestly, that's not an accident. There was, over many generations, an intent to keep things secret. There's also something powerful about having parts of a teaching that are only to be shared in certain circumstances. It kind of makes it more interesting and not less for the average person. But when people use the word Kabbalah, there's two ways that they use it. One is they mean Jewish spirituality broadly. So in that sense, Moses was a Kabbalist, and Devorah the prophetess was a Kabbalist. And all of the rabbis who were into meditation, including Maimonides, maybe you could call a Kabbalist. I think most people would hesitate to call Maimonides a Kabbalist. And if anyone wants more info on that, I'm happy to get into it in the Q&A. But that is a common usage of the word Kabbalah. The other usage is it refers to a particular movement within Jewish mysticism. And that is something that was first written down around the end of the 1100s or so in Provence, France. And then more was written down about it in Spain over the next century or so. And over time it spread. And there were times that it was so popular that you could barely find a significant rabbi who wasn't also engaging with Kabbalah. And that system was really centered around the 10 Sefirot. If you can see this chart behind me, this is a creative rendering of the 10 Sefirot, and they're essentially 10 divine qualities, 10 energies that describe, in a sense, the way that the infinite becomes manifest in the finite. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens gradually, layer by layer, different expression by different expression. And this whole system, it could be understood as a cosmology, as a way to understand the whole universe and how we got here. But it's also understood as being very personal, that each of these 10 emanations can be seen as a part of who we are, an expression of our development or our potential. So there's a great deal of reflection that's been done on these 10 energy centers. The Zohar, the most famous medieval Kabbalistic book, uses these energies to understand the Torah. And the whole thing is a commentary on the Torah that, no, Abraham isn't Abraham. Abraham is the vessel for the divine quality of chesed that brings love into the world. And Sarah isn't Sarah. She's someone who embodies Shekhinah, which is the receiving quality in the tree of life. And on and on. The whole thing is seen as a metaphor for this realm, these spiritual layers. So for a mystic, for this kind of spiritual practitioner or teacher, for a Kabbalist, what lies beyond? We want to use the word God or the divine or goddess or whatever word we want to use. For the Kabbalist, that's not a theory as much as it is an experience. It's not a theology that's built on a rational platform. It's something that it's encountered. It's a relationship. And then a lot of Kabbalah is really trying to express something that's very hard to put into words. Right? The central name of God in the Hebrew Bible can't be pronounced. That says something about our relationship to what lies beyond. There's mystery there. It's hard to put into words. So a lot of Kabbalah is emerging from an encounter or something very meaningful that happens. And yeah, these things can happen in meditation. They can happen in study or in, rock concerts. But they can also happen when we walk in the woods, when we're gardening, when we're spending time with our children or grandchildren. There's no limit to the gateways, the access points that we can have. And in a lot of ways, Judaism itself is a system that sees that our world has light within it, even though it may be hidden. This whole project, in a sense, is about uncovering and discovering what's just beneath the surface. So returning to this light, returning to this initial question of what did God create on day one if the sun, the moon, and the stars didn't appear until day 4? This is a light that Jewish mystics call Or HaGanuz. It means the hidden light. There is a legend that Adam was shown this hidden light and that he had access to it for 36 hours before he messed up with Eve. That he, using this light, it didn't seem to be bound by the normal constructs of reality. It was something very special. They say that he could see from one end of the world to the other, using this Or HaGanuz, using this hidden light. There's a legend, you might have heard a midrash about an angel that comes to a fetus while the fetus is still in the womb. And the angel teaches that yet to be born child everything it needs to know for its whole life. And one of the parts of that legend is that that child is shown a glimpse of this light. And from the womb, it has the capacity to see beyond. The same stories about how this light emerged, whether that's the 36 hours where Adam took it, or the other version where it's sort of inherent in existence from the beginning, when God says, let there be light, there's something that emerges of a spiritual light. Generally, those same stories say that the light was hidden away because God realized that not everyone was going to be so saintly and so ready to handle this light with care, and that it was powerful. And so God hides it away. And the same Kabbalists who tell this story, they say that the Hanukkah candles are a way to access this light to this very day. There are different spiritual or emotional or virtue-based qualities to every holiday. So we know that leading up to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is a time to apologize. And it's a time to reflect and to try and understand where we might have gone wrong in the previous year. But that doesn't mean we can't do tshuva at other times of year, right? But that's what's called, that season of a high holiday is called an et ratzon. It's a time of favor. It's a really good time to apologize to people and to do that kind of work. Just like the holiday of Shavuot, its essence is the revelation of the Torah. It's a time where we can maybe hear some new wisdom. But it's not like we can't hear wisdom the rest of the year. What I'm saying is Hanukkah is an et ratzon. It's a time of favor to hopefully get a glimpse of something that's lying beyond, to make contact with a subtle kind of illumination. And whether we get to see from one end of the world to the other or not through this glimpse, there is something really special and magical that we can find when we sit and gaze at a candle. This practice, this intention can be done. It's like maybe perhaps most likely to have a positive impact on Hanukkah, but it's also the kind of thing that can happen any time of year. It's searching for the hidden light. You may know the saying, Or Zarua la Tzadik, the light is sown for the righteous. Many say that that's the light we're talking about. It is a light that can reveal itself to us, not by force. Nothing can will this light. But if we live in a good way, if we pursue love and peace and kindness and charity and justice and all of those good things, and we spend a little time gazing at the Hanukkah lights or in meditation more broadly, contemplating being open to what could be, sometimes we're blessed with a glimpse of that special something called the Or HaGanuz. So because there is so little written about Hanukkah and its origins, really, there's not much to work with if you're going to be an interpreter. So all of the mystics, it's not just the Jewish mystics, they're trying to explain something that's sort of beyond words. So a lot of what happens is they use symbols from their culture. They tell stories. They use metaphors. But because there's so little in the source material around Hanukkah, they get a little creative in this case. So some of these magical teachings, these sort of drawn out creative reads. So if we were to take all the Hanukkah candles, we were to add them together. So excluding the shamash, excluding the helper candle, because that's not really a Hanukkah candle. Just as an aside, there are some people who say that in Jewish law, the reason that the shamash is there is because you're not actually supposed to really benefit from the light. You're not supposed to read by the Hanukkah candles. Unlike the Shabbat candles, you're encouraged to read by them, and they're supposed to be an asset to peace in the home and that kind of thing. Especially before we had electricity, having an extra candle around was pretty useful. It really brought in the Shabbat Shalom, the Sabbath peace. But the Hanukkah candles are not supposed to be utilized. So just in case someone utilizes them, they can just say, oh, I was utilizing the shamash. It's not really a Hanukkah candle. So it's a little bit of a loophole there. So if we're adding up Hanukkah candles, we can exclude that. And if we add up every single day, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5, all the way to 8, we get the number 36. Now, you might associate 36 with double chai, right? 18 plus 18, that's true. And 36 is also the number of hours that Adam had access to the hidden light. Those traditions did not evolve simultaneously, by the way. And there's also a legend of the 36 hidden tzaddikim, the 36 hidden righteous people. This goes all the way back to the Talmud. And the legend says that at any given time on earth, there are 36 holy people doing righteous deeds and not taking credit for them. They are, if you will, hidden lights. So isn't it interesting that the total number of Hanukkah candles equals 36, which is associated with the hidden light Adam was given, which is associated with the hidden tzaddikim. So that's one form of interpretation a Kabbalist will use. Just in case you're wondering, I do not consider this style of interpretation rational. I don't consider it science. I consider it art. And I think it's beautiful. So if anyone's curious later, I don't live my life according to numerology most of the time, but there's something really creative and wonderful about the practice. So another element here, and I think what I'll do now is I'm going to share a whiteboard just to express this part of it, is that the month where Hanukkah starts is called Kislev. And that looks like this. I'll make that bigger. The month of Kislev, if we were to analyze it using this way of seeing the world, we would understand that the first two letters, Kaf Samech, are related. They're the core letters of the word Kisui. And Kisui means hidden. And these last two letters, Lamed Vav, in Hebrew numerology, every letter has a numerical value. Lamed equals 30. Vav equals 6. So there is a way, and it's not even a complicated way, to read the month when Hanukkah begins, Kislev, as a symbol for the hidden 36, the hidden light. It's right there in the name of the month. Also, why do we have 8 nights of Hanukkah? Well, if we take the number 8 and we turn it on its side, we get infinity. And Hanukkah is a holiday in which we're trying to access this infinite light, the light that precedes creation. There are 7 days of the week. There are 7 days in creation. That's the creation of time and space, but 8 is beyond. And here's that number 8, and it can also represent infinity.